Well, normal service restored. That's the Aston Villa we've gotten to know and love for the last couple of years, and I hope that Unai Emery will have seen all of it, taken note, and not wait forever to address so many of the issues that reared their heads once again on Thursday. By the way, how do you like this? This is the player's third travel jacket with the reflective piping for you early morning dog walkers. I really am impressed with Castor. Fits so differently than Kappa. 2XL for me on everything. Although I do not like the sweaty pajama kit that Villa wore at Old Trafford on Thursday. I think that's the worst kit. Doesn't look like first team kit at all. Looks like training gear. That's the worst we've made in an awful long time. But it's that time of year. You want to do some shopping. There are Black Friday deals, all sorts of deals on if you want to buy something for yourself or friends. I've put a link in the description below. That link will take you to the Villa Fanatic store. Treat yourself, somebody else in time for the holidays. You'll be helping out the show. And we have lots to talk about in this program. And what is next for Aston Villa, apart from Brighton heading into this long World Cup? So let's review a very, very Villa-like Carabao Cup tie, Manchester United 4, Aston Villa 2. Here's the gif that best describes how I feel after the 4-2 loss at Manchester United. I mean, this is absolutely incredible to me. You see Tyrone Mings spreading wide left as he should. Why he didn't get the ball given to him then and there. And then he is now, watch him scramble because he's out of position. I mean, Robin Olsen is as inconsistent a player with a ball at his feet as I think I've ever seen. It's just absolutely bizarre to me. Before we get into yet another Aston Villa exit to a cup competition thanks to Manchester United, they did finally confirm the club that the new badge will be the round retro version, to nobody's surprise. The greatest success this club has ever achieved occurred during the round badge era. So I'm all for it in that respect. The negative space between the words Aston Villa and 1874 seems to be imbalanced. For me, there seems to be too much negative space, but I'm not going to complain. I will get used to the rampant line facing the other direction like it did in the club originally. But like any other badge before this one, this badge will continue to evolve. You can mark my words on that because all the others have. And even though there are a lot of Premier League clubs with round badges, we're facing one of them on Sunday, I'm still happy with this choice. It's now time to move on. It was a great away support. I mean, the sound that came out of that stadium at times made you wonder if we had a bigger allocation. It was all Villa for so much of that game. And then it just kind of turned as we present the Holy Trinity show, the three key issues or moments that define Manchester United 4, Aston Villa 2 in round 3 of the Carabao Cup. We'll start with the key statistics. And again, I don't think this was just about 3 distinct issues or moments, but the one stat that I looked at was interceptions. You'd have thought that the more interceptions you have, the better chances you have to counter and make things happen in the front third. But it was all Manchester United. I mean, look at that in terms of shots on target, expected goals. And Villa had 8 interceptions in that game, but they couldn't turn enough of them into more goals. And so Unai Emery is not the miracle worker we all had hoped and wished he might be, and that he had to watch some of the same issues that we've been watching for the last 2 seasons recur time and time again, hopefully taking note, hopefully willing to make some changes, because as all of us long-suffering Villa fans know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I'm going to go through those issues now one by one. Among Unai Emery's many, many challenges with this squad and trying to get the most out of players between now and the end of this season is to try to find a way of getting Emi Buendia to be even close to half the player he is at Villa Park, because that may have been one of the most anonymous performances I've seen from the Argentine since he's joined Villa. As a record signing, keep in mind, a record signing. And say what you want about Steven Gerrard, he didn't even play this player, right? He comes on in the 59th minute with fresh legs, and he did not connect, he did not combine, he did not win duels. He has to be more consistent. And I realize when you go on any show and you question Emi Buendia, the player, you're going to get ripped for it. But I've had this concern for a long time. It is just too erratic, not consistent enough. And that's what Unai Emery says he needs to change at Aston Villa. And this is one of those players that has to change given his price tag. John McGinn is no longer capable of playing fast enough for the Premier League, either defensively or in an attacking posture. Time and time again, he faltered under pressure because he's not quick enough in speed of thought or physically quick enough, makes ill-advised passes under pressure, like the one he played to Boubacar Kamara at the edge of his own area. We somehow got away with that one. Then later in the game, when we had a chance to counter and we had numbers going forward, he dwelt on the ball too long and the move fizzled. Every single opposing midfielder and manager knows you put pressure on John McGinn, you're gonna get the ball back, because the only move he has left in his locker is to stick his arse out, fall over, and hope he can get a foul. I sincerely hope that the new technical staff saw what we've been seeing for the last year plus and reacts now. There is baggage here that we need to move on from. Tyrone Mings may have been a man of the match candidate on Sunday, but he came on at 59 minutes, after which 3 goals were conceded. Think about that for a minute. 3 goals in 30 minutes. Now, the 2-2-1, he just slipped and fell over. It was as if he was tackled by a hologram. On the 3-2 goal, okay, he spreads wide left, which he should have, and he should have received the ball from Robin Olsen, who instead plays just a putrid ball to nobody. And now he's having to scramble back, and I get it, but he's out of control. He's diving in, he deflects the ball past his goalkeeper. And then on the 4-2 goal, he's caught by a ball over the top, which Villa were caught time and time again, because that's all United had was the long ball over the top, which then makes me question a little bit this decision to play a high line, because Villa isn't constructed with athletes that can play a high line, especially when Ezri Konsa comes out. He's the one defender we have who can gallop and get back. Mings and Chambers cannot. So when Konsa came out, that would have been the time to maybe play a shallower line and sit back a little bit. I don't understand that decision or why they decided to play in that way, but they gifted United the opportunity to play in and behind them over and over again. I love Tyrone Mings as a human being, but I am starting to become convinced that there is no way around the calamities that continuously occur involving this player. And if we are truly to move on and clean house and start anew and move that way, I think it's time for Tyrone Mings to find a new club. It may be better for his career. Robin Olsen. Oh, Robin Olsen. And we have to upgrade here. He is not up to the standard as a Premier League backup goalkeeper. This is the second time in a couple of weeks he's conceded 4 goals in an away game, and he was responsible for at least a couple of them. I already showed you the 3-2 goal, but there were other moments as well where he's stumbling and fumbling around. He plays so deep in his goal. I just don't feel like the team trusts him in front of him. How about the scramble in the second half when he can't claim it, jumping high and it's bouncing around and he's diving at people's feet? My goodness. Say a prayer for Emi Martinez at the World Cup that he comes back healthy, because this is a problem. And this sounds awful to say, but if Olsen and Augustinsson are starters in that Swedish men's national team, is it any surprise that they didn't qualify for the World Cup? Aston Villa proved once again, this is incredible to me, that they are most vulnerable after scoring. When Anthony Martial tapped home a Bruno Fernandes square ball in minute 49, just 90 seconds after Ollie Watkins had given the side a lead, they managed for the fourth time this season to break one of football's 10 commandments. Thou shalt not concede within 5 minutes after scoring. And it should not take a new manager to have to come in and remind them that you need to button things up after you take a lead like that, especially away from home. And it's as if Man United only started playing when they did get scored on, and then they finally found their rhythm after that. But I mean, this is incredible to me. 4 times this year, this has happened. From 2-0 to 2-1 hosting Everton, 1-0 to 1-1 Crystal Palace, 1-1 to 1-2 at Arsenal, and now this. You know, once is poor, twice is crazy, 3 times is absolutely inexplicable and the sign of a team that is mentally vacant. It's inexcusable. You take a lead away from home in a difficult place, the next 5 minutes need to be buttoned up, and they didn't. Danny Ings is incapable of pressing in the Premier League. You know, he doesn't have the relentlessness of Watkins, the power of Jacob Ramsey, or the bolt of electricity that is Leon Bailey. And he could be a player for somebody. There is a team perfect for him out there, maybe in the championship, where he can get on to the end of things in the penalty area and maybe even score beyond just 10 goals for somebody else. But at this level, he cannot press effectively. And if that's something that we want to do, we need players who are capable of doing it. I don't want to go over his history of how he arrived at Aston Villa again, but if we are going to bring in substantial players in this window in January, we also have to move some other players on and allow them to carry on with their careers too. You know, up until halftime, I thought our game plan was absolutely spot on. We're not there to entertain. We're there to disrupt. We're there to stifle, frustrate, neutralize, bore. I'm not watching to be entertained. I'm watching because I want to see my side get into round 4 of the Carabao Cup. That's why Villa was there. And at halftime, they were in a great position to do that. And then they take a lead, and then they get another lead. And how do they respond? They get into a track meet by playing a high line. And our team is not equipped to play with a high line. Callum Chambers, he's not fast enough to deal with all that spacing behind. Robin Olsen was rooted inside his 6-yard box. Be a sweeper keeper, man, if we're playing a high line. Get out of your box, charge the ball down and clear it away. He never did. And our fullbacks were beaten so many times in behind. Augustinsson just could not manage. Neither could Ashley Young. That reminded me of Stevie G Ball at times. Pacier, better wingers just doing our fullbacks. So for an elite manager who's such a good coach and so prepared, this move to playing a high line against them when they were having so much success without any adjustment, that was a bit of a concern for me. Or maybe he was just testing this squad to see what they were capable of. And now that he knows, hopefully he will never go back to that ever again. And so off we go, a visit to the South Coast and Brighton and Hove Albion. What a club, a model club, as far as I'm concerned. Headed up by CEO Paul Barber, who ironically lived and worked here in Vancouver with the local MLS club for a couple of seasons, so I got to know him a little bit. Very serious, very clever, very shrewd individual, hardcore Tottenham Hotspur fan. His heart will always be Tottenham, but what he's helped build at the Amex, including the stadium, although I think that was happening just prior to him getting there, is truly remarkable. They had the single manager, Graham Potter, that they identified. He's built it footballing-wise the way they wanted it. Recruitment-wise, everything fell in line. Think about the players that they've bought and then flipped on. Neil Mopai, Ben White, Kukurea, and Yves Bissouma. That's just 4 on the top of my head. There were more, and they've replenished that squad and are flying right now, coming off an away win at Arsenal in the Cup midweek. And when Graham Potter was finally poached for his good work, they had already identified a similar footballing mind. They moved swiftly, in addition to getting compensation for Potter, and wouldn't you know it, they beat Potter's Chelsea quite comfortably. It's an amazing story. Mad respect for the Seagulls. So I'm intrigued now with how Villa is going to handle this trip to the Amex, knowing that they were probably surprise winners last year with Matty Cash scoring, the message on his shirt, remember, and then Ollie Watkins sealing it. And I believe that we will probably have serious bouts of defensive pressure to deal with. But I feel like Ollie Watkins right now is in a rich vein of form, as is Leon Bailey and Jacob Ramsey and Leander Dendoncker, a guy they also probably need to ride, and a guy I forgot to mention last week as a player who is World Cup bound and probably going to be depended on quite heavily by Belgium, along with Emi Martinez and Matty Cash for Poland. But I don't see any reason why, despite how good Brighton has been, that Aston Villa can't go there, put in a credible shift, basically rejig a few things, get the right personnel out there, and maybe even take something from this game. I think they're more than capable. And what I'm excited about with this new manager, again, is that sense of confidence. Can they go into this game with some confidence? Because if they do, anything can happen. Like you, I'm very excited about what's happening at Aston Villa and the months that are to come. A little bit of time with the players now that are left behind from the World Cup, ingraining them with some philosophies and approaches to how he wants to train this team and how they want to play. Not to mention a recruitment strategy that's going to have to be very bold and aggressive come January, because as you know, the World Cup inflates players' values. So Villa's had a knack of being proactive in the market. I think they're going to need to do that again and move very swiftly and spend more money than what they've spent before. Am I excited about the World Cup, though? Strangely, I'm not. Maybe it's the kickoff times. Maybe it's the dirtiness involving the human rights in Qatar. Maybe it's the fact that I just watched that FIFA Uncovered series on Netflix exposing what an absolute debacle the world governing body is and how that World Cup was even decided. So I'm not as excited, and I should be. Canada hasn't been in the World Cup since 1986. But the idea of getting up at 2 a.m. to watch games in the middle of winter with Christmas decorations around, the whole thing is utterly bizarre. However, I will probably watch. Hopefully nobody gets hurt before, after, or during. And in the meantime, until Brighton, be well, be healthy, and as always, up the mighty Villa.